Good evening. This is Reverend Marcia Tucker of Summerland Grove Pagan Church, sharing with you tonight some reflections on this dark moon. It's March 2nd, 2025. We are in the second mansion, Al Butane, the belly of the fish in Pisces. I wish to share some poems that I've written tonight about the divine gardener. Um, the divine gardener is that aspect of your divine self, that part of you that is connected with divinity, that is an aspect of divinity. The divine gardener is the one who nurtures and facilitates growth. Facilitating growth requires a lot of different steps and a lot of hard work. There are seeds to be sown. The seeds that must then be cultivated. They must be planted in an appropriate medium. They must receive water. Once they sprout, then when leaves emerge through the soil, they have to receive light. The frequencies of the light, plus the water, plus whatever um, food medium they have in their seed pods, and the soil, all of that together promotes growth. When the plant, the herb or the vegetable or whatever the plant is that you're growing, reaches a certain stage, then there's additional work to be done. You can't just leave it there. You don't simply just water it. But sometimes you need to do some pruning. Plants, especially vegetable plants like, say, peppers and tomatoes, they will not produce enough unless you do very specific pruning, removal of offshoots, side shoots, removal of excess foliage. So all that has to be done. So think of the divine gardener as the one who is promoting your growth, nurturing you, pruning you. And the pruning sometimes can be pretty painful. Um, the discernment about what the pruning entails, this is what we call shadow work. So these poems that I'm going to be sharing with you are reflections on this process. And so on this dark moon night, I invite you to light a candle, to sit back, take some deep breaths, listen to my voice in the reflections that I'm sharing with you, and I hope that you can experience Divine Gardener and receive some insight as to the pruning that you need to do in your life and what seeds you need to sow and how. I don't have a title for this first one. Okay. Poem number one. Just as some bulbs need cold weather to bloom, and seeds must endure the darkness of the earth to sprout, so Divine Gardener sets obstacles before us before we too can bloom. My soil and soul must be prepared. I must be cultivated. Adversity is usually the path to growth. The garden of our society has struggled and is hard pressed to endure. O divine gardener within each of us, take a gentle hand to us. Nurture us kindly, that our growth will be sure, that we not grow spindly and weak, but thick and strong, that fruit of justice and kindness and peace be abundant and pure, that we produce good seed in our children to carry on what we have grown. Thus may we become lotus. The second poem is a night prayer. It's called In the Garden of Sleep. When rest at last claims my eyes, a strange activity is said to begin. Healing is this body's order of business. Restoration, renewal, cleansing, clearing, the hand of divine gardener at work. Even as I sleep, he tends me. For all the tumultuous happenstances, the massive stream of data poured into me, the wears and tears of the day's busy times, all must be processed, adjusted, sorted. Just as gardening, as in the beginning of the new growing season, is a time of dumping out the old soil of pots, of tilling and raking, of finding the new shoots and replanting. I cannot live without this nightly attention. Gardener, with tools and spade in hand, come into my dreams with your expert eye. Shake out the unneeded debris of worry. Prune the tangled tree of my daily messes. Plant only the seeds of sound wisdom, the knowledge of my right relation to the all. Tend well, my divine gardener within. Tend well and husband my garden with care, my flowers to bloom more vividly, my fruit more lush and nutritious, that I may be a garden of healing balm to myself, to all. And the final poem that I wish to share with you tonight is called Casting Pods. Think of seed pods. Casting pods. There is no gardening without risk. Whether 7 or a pod full of seeds be cast, only a few may germinate. Expectations run high. Hopes soar. Visions stream of a bounty of fruit-laden plants. Reality is harsh, that mistress of truth. The conditions for that bursting forth exact. The right temperature, the right level of moisture, the right amount of and frequency of sunlight. The conditions within the pod or the seed coat must be just right, just so. It's a miracle anything grows at all. Life is a definite crapshoot, and we exhaust ourselves in taking it for granted. Still, the gardener cannot afford to hang hopes on strings of conditions fragile and temperamental. The gardener must cast pods anyway. There will be hope even so, that seedlings will surface. How many or how strong they be, an unknown that must be accepted, must be lived with. So also in our lives, our relationships must, our situations. Life is so that we cannot control the strings of conditions. Only cast pods anyway, only tend and water and feed. We can only prune, weed, trim back whatever we can see. The consequences are not certain. We have to embrace the gardener's path of uncertainty. Sometimes we will fail to water. Sometimes we will cut too deep. Sometimes we will over-fertilize and burn what we grow. It doesn't mean to quit gardening. That we can never do. No one ever promised us a green thumb. To stop gardening is like the physician ignoring the cries of her patients, the lover freezing his heart, the child throwing away her toys, the artist shutting up her studio or mouth, the parent to turn his back on his child, the professor to leave the lecture hall before class, the knight to break his sword, the archivist to embrace entropy. To not garden is to stop being who we are. Fear might tempt us to do just that. Should we stop casting pods because they may never open? Instead, we should cast pods so they may burst into glory. And that is our meditation for this dark moon night. I hope that it may have given you some insight and inspiration as to the process of sowing seeds, casting pods, pruning, nurturing, fertilizing, all of that we have to juggle in life and balance in order to become lotus, in order to burst into blooms of glory. Thank you and good evening.